Max Verstappen just put Red Bull and the International Automobile Federation on the edge of a crisis nobody can afford to lose. Change the 2027 engine rules, or risk watching the most important driver of this era walk away from Formula One. And this is not about one bad race. It is not about a slow Red Bull. It is not even about Max wanting an easier championship. It is about something much more dangerous. Verstappen believes Formula One may be building a future where the car feels less natural, less aggressive, and less controlled by the driver. The original direction pushes the sport toward a 50-50 power split, half combustion, half electric. But Verstappen's line is brutally clear. Move toward 60-40, give more authority back to the driver, and the future still has a chance. Delay it, block it, or let politics decide, and Formula One could lose Max while he is still fast enough to win. That would detonate Red Bull's entire project. It would expose the International Automobile Federation to the biggest regulation backlash in years. And it would force the whole paddock to answer one uncomfortable question. Has Formula One created a future so advanced that its greatest driver no longer wants to be part of it? Because Canada did not end this crisis. It revealed the condition. And now, every meeting, every delay, and every political move could push Verstappen one step closer to the exit. Subscribe to the channel. At first, Red Bull wanted this to look like a performance problem. A difficult car. A frustrated champion. A team searching for answers after years of looking almost untouchable. That is the kind of crisis Formula One understands. It has happened before, to every great team, in every era. The car falls out of its perfect window. The rivals catch up. The driver complains. The engineers promise upgrades. And everyone waits for the next race. But this Verstappen situation is not that simple. Because if this was only about Red Bull being slower, the solution would be obvious. Build a better car. Cut the weight. Improve the balance. Find more speed on the straights. Give Max a platform he can trust again. That would be painful, but normal. The real problem is that Verstappen is not only questioning Red Bull. He is questioning Formula One itself. And that is the part that turns a difficult season into a potential earthquake. Because Red Bull can fix a car. The International Automobile Federation has to fix a direction. And right now, both of them are trapped inside the same warning. If the next era of Formula One does not feel right, Max Verstappen may not want to be part of it. That sentence is what makes this crisis different. Not because drivers never threaten to leave. They do. Formula One is full of pressure, politics, and emotional comments. But most retirement threats come when a driver is older, exhausted, declining, or running out of competitive options. Verstappen is different. He is not a driver begging for one last chance. He is not fading quietly at the back of the grid. He is not searching for relevance. He is still the reference point. The driver every rival measures himself against. The driver who can turn a difficult weekend into something dangerous. The driver who, even when Red Bull is not perfect, can make the entire paddock nervous. And that is why his threat cuts deeper. Because if a driver like that walks away, people will not ask whether he was finished. They will ask what pushed him out. That question is the nightmare for Red Bull and for the International Automobile Federation. For Red Bull, the fear is immediate. The team's entire modern identity has been built around Verstappen's speed, his precision, his standards, and his ability to expose every weakness in the car. Max does not simply drive for Red Bull. He defines the level Red Bull has to reach. When the car is good, he turns it into domination. When the car is flawed, he drags it toward results that make the flaws harder to see. And when the car is truly uncomfortable, he says so, without wrapping the truth in soft language. That directness can be brutal, but it is also valuable. It gives the team a clear mirror. No excuses. No illusion. No hiding behind a lucky result. But now that same directness has created a bigger problem. Because Verstappen is not only saying the Red Bull 22 has issues. He is saying the future rules may take Formula One in a direction he does not enjoy. And a team can fight a bad car. It cannot easily fight a driver losing faith in the sport. That is where the International Automobile Federation enters the story. The 2027 engine debate sounds technical, but it has become emotional. The original direction pushed Formula One toward a stronger electric balance, with a 50-50 split between combustion power and electric power. On paper, that sounds modern, clean, efficient, and advanced. But inside the cockpit, that future may feel very different. A Formula One car is not just a machine a driver sits inside. It is a living conversation at impossible speed. The driver feels everything. The rear tires. The brake pedal. The throttle response. The moment the car starts to rotate. The warning before grip disappears. For Verstappen, that conversation has always been his greatest weapon. He feels the limit, then lives there. Not once. Not for one qualifying lap. Again, and again, and again, until pressure breaks everyone else first. But if the car starts changing its behavior depending on battery state, electric deployment, and energy management, the conversation becomes less direct. The driver is no longer only asking, how late can I brake, how early can I go to power, how much speed can I carry? He is also asking, how much energy do I have, when will it arrive, when will it fade, how much must I save, and what will the car feel like at the end of the straight? That may be clever. It may be advanced. It may even be the kind of challenge some teams want. But for Verstappen, it appears to attack the core of what racing should feel like. And that is why this fight is no longer just about engines. It is about control. Who controls the car at the decisive moment? The driver, through instinct and commitment. Or the system, through management and deployment. That is the emotional line underneath the technical language. And once you understand that, Verstappen's position becomes much easier to understand. He is not saying Formula One should reject technology. That would make no sense. Formula One has always been technology. Every great era of the sport has been shaped by innovation, by engineering obsession, by people finding tiny advantages that change everything. Red Bull's own success was built on that. Verstappen knows better than anyone that Formula One is not supposed to be simple. But there is a difference between technology that helps a driver attack, and technology that makes the driver feel like he is managing a puzzle instead of driving a race car. That difference is where this crisis lives. Imagine trying to sprint down a road while your shoes decide when to give you grip. Sometimes they launch you forward. Sometimes they feel heavy. Sometimes they respond immediately. Sometimes they wait just long enough to make your body hesitate. You could still run. You could still be fast. But you would never feel completely free. That is the fear Verstappen is pointing toward. And for a driver built on instinct, freedom is not decoration. It is the foundation. This is why the proposed 60-40 change has become so important. 60% combustion power, 40% electric power. To casual fans, it sounds like a small numerical adjustment. A shift in balance. A technical detail buried inside a regulation debate. But for Verstappen, it may be the difference between a car that feels alive and a car that feels too controlled by systems. It is not about turning Formula One backward. It is about preventing the future from becoming too distant from the driver. And that is where the political tension becomes unavoidable. Because if the International Automobile Federation moves towards 60-40, some manufacturers may feel hurt. They may have already invested heavily in the original direction. They may believe they found an advantage in the stronger electric side. They may not want the target moved because one superstar driver is unhappy. And they have a point. Formula One cannot appear to rewrite the future every time a champion pushes back. That would create chaos. Teams need stable rules. Manufacturers need confidence. Engineers need to know that the goalposts will not move after years of work. But the opposite risk is just as dangerous. If the sport refuses to adjust, it may send a message that the driver's feeling does not matter enough. That Formula One is willing to become more technically impressive, even if the people inside the cars feel less connected to the machine. That is not a small risk. Because fans do not fall in love with Formula One because a power unit concept looks clever in a meeting. They fall in love with the human edge. The late braking. The impossible save. The driver who trusts the rear of the car when everyone watching holds their breath. The machine matters. But the driver gives the machine meaning. And Verstappen is warning that the meaning could be weakened. For Red Bull, this warning lands at the worst possible time. Because the team is already trying to understand a car that has not given Verstappen the confidence he expects. The Red Bull 22 has shown progress, but it has also exposed issues that keep the team from looking settled. Extra weight. A power deficit compared with Mercedes. Rear instability over bumps. A very narrow operating window. That last detail is critical. A narrow operating window means the car only performs properly when the conditions are just right. The track temperature, the tires, the balance, the fuel load, the wind, the surface, everything has to line up. When it does, the car can look better. When it does not, the driver is left fighting something unpredictable. Think of it like a door that only opens smoothly from one perfect angle. If you push it exactly right, it works. If you are slightly off, it jams. That is not what a driver wants at 200 miles per hour. A driver like Verstappen needs a car that gives confidence across changing conditions. He needs to know that when the rear moves, he understands why. He needs to feel that when he commits, the car will respond in a way his instincts can predict. Without that, he is not attacking the lap. He is managing uncertainty. And that connects directly to the bigger fear about the engine rules. Because if the present car already feels difficult, and the future rules threaten to make the driving experience even less natural, then Verstappen's frustration becomes more than impatience. It becomes a calculation. How much is this still worth? The travel, the pressure, the media, the politics, the danger, the constant demand to perform, the long calendar, the time away from home, the mental weight of carrying a team that has built itself around him. A driver can accept all of that when the reward is the feeling of pure racing. But if that feeling begins to disappear, everything changes. That is why this is not a normal Red Bull crisis. A normal crisis asks, can the team make the car faster? This crisis asks, can Red Bull and the International Automobile Federation convince Max Verstappen that Formula One is still worth staying for? Those are very different questions. And the second one is far harder to answer. Because Verstappen does not sound like a driver who needs Formula One at any price. That is what makes him so dangerous in this situation. Some drivers are trapped by the spotlight. They need the paddock, the cameras, the status, the constant noise of being part of the show. Max has always seemed different. He loves racing, but he does not seem addicted to the theater around it. He has other projects, other passions, other ways to compete. He has already won the championships most drivers dream about as children and never even come close to touching. So when he hints that he could walk away, it does not feel like empty pressure. It feels possible. And possible is enough to terrify Formula One. Because the sport can handle a rumor about Verstappen changing teams. That would be explosive, but understandable. The driver market would go wild. Red Bull would panic. Rivals would dream. Fans would debate every possible destination. But retirement is different. Retirement means the sport itself has failed to keep him engaged. That is the part nobody can spin easily. If he leaves while still fast enough to win, the story will not be about age. It will not be about decline. It will not be about a champion slowly fading from the front. It will be about rejection. A driver rejecting the direction of Formula One. That would put Red Bull in crisis, but it would put the International Automobile Federation under a microscope. Every decision would be judged again. Every technical argument would be questioned. Every statement about the future would carry the same uncomfortable shadow. Was this preventable? And that is why the first stage of this story matters so much. Because the threat is not only about what Verstappen might do. It is about what his threat has already exposed. It has exposed Red Bull's dependence on one extraordinary driver. It has exposed the danger of building future rules that drivers may not enjoy. It has exposed the political tension between manufacturers, teams, the governing body, and the human beings who actually race the cars. And most of all, it has exposed that Formula One's greatest strength can also become its weakness. The sport wants to be the most advanced racing series in the world. But if advancement makes the racing feel less human, then the sport risks losing the very thing that made people care in the first place. That is the line Verstappen has dragged into the open. And now Red Bull cannot ignore it. The International Automobile Federation cannot ignore it. The paddock cannot ignore it. Because once the best driver of the era says the future might not be worth driving, the question is no longer whether he is frustrated. The question is whether Formula One is listening before it is too late.